Hi, so I'm going to read Churchill's speech after Dunkirk aloud for you. I think there's a couple spots where you might miss things, so I just wanted to read it and have it recorded and make sure everyone is following the content. All right, this is the speech Churchill gave after Dunkirk. I mentioned it in the lecture, probably the lecture you went over at the beginning of this class or um, yesterday. Yeah, and basically the press made a big deal of the evacuation of Dunkirk, and they called it a miracle, and it was kind of a miracle. Those people were really close to all being killed, and those soldiers ended up going back to fight at D-Day and really helped to win World War II. So it was important, but people were getting a little over carried away, saying it was a great victory and all that. It was an evacuation, and you don't win wars from evacuations. And that was kind of Churchill's point. He wanted to get the British people mentally prepared for a long fight, and that's what it was going to be. The directions: read the excerpt below, then answer the questions in complete sentences. Um, and that's what you need to do. Let's look at the questions ahead of time. How does Churchill view the possibility of invasion? If Great Britain should be conquered, from what two places does Churchill expect help? All right, once you have the document, you should always make a copy. So let's make a copy first of all. And then put your name. And I'll just click OK on the box. I usually get rid of the original, but I'm going to need mine. So I would encourage you to close the tab with the original. So I'm going to need one to create the assignment in a second. Make sure you put your name, date, and period in there. That way, one, you have good habits, and two, I don't pick up points because you're not following directions. When it's part of the directions, it's a must. Narration. Winston Churchill led Great Britain in two world wars. As First Lord of the Admiralty in World War One, he was the Navy guy in charge for the disaster that's known as Gallipoli. And it's pretty embarrassing. He eventually becomes Prime Minister in World War II because he's the only one telling the people that Neville Chamberlain's peace in our time and appeasement of Hitler was a mistake. And turns out he was absolutely right. And so when the war started, they looked to Churchill to lead. He succeeded Neville Chamberlain as Prime Minister in May of 1940, and his blunt personality and stirring speeches helped carry Great Britain to the next 5 difficult years. And in countless movies, you hear these speeches, and he would often deliver the speech um, with his gravelly voice and a lot of. He was a great speech maker. I mean, he really was, and wrote a couple of famous books. Only a month after he took office, Churchill made a memorable speech to the House of Commons in response to the heroic evacuation of the British Army from Dunkirk. Does any of that answer our questions? Well, I know I want to make sure it's a sentence, so I'm going to write this. Churchill sees possibility of invasion of the United Kingdom. And so we're looking for that. Okay, let's get to the speech. I have full confidence that if all do their duty, if nothing is neglected, and the best arrangements are made, we shall prove ourselves once again able to defend our island, to ride out the storm of war, and to outlive the menace of tyranny, if necessary for years, if necessary alone. That is what we're going to try to do. Basically, it was the Nazis against the only country that was free in Europe was the United Kingdom. And the Soviets were sitting it out. The Spanish had fought their own civil war. So there really wasn't anyone else. That is the resolve of His Majesty's government, every man of them. That is the will of Parliament and the nation. The British Empire and the French Republic, linked together in their good, in their cause, and in their need, will defend to the death their native soil, aiding each other like good comrades to the utmost of their strength. Even though large tracts of Europe and many old and famous states have fallen or may fall into the grip of the Gestapo and all the odious, means hateful, apparatus of Nazi rule, We shall not flag, that means weaken, or fail. We shall go on to the end. We shall fight in France. We shall fight on the seas and oceans. We shall fight with growing confidence and growing strength in the air. We shall defend our island, whatever the cost may be. We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall fight in the hills. We shall never surrender. And even if, which I do not for a moment to believe, this island or a large part of it were subjugated or conquered and starving, then our empire beyond the seas, armed and guarded by the British fleet, would carry on the struggle until, in God's good time, the new world, with all its power and might, step forth to the rescue and liberation of the old. Okay, let's break that down. This is the key part here. We shall never surrender anyone. I don't know if he directly says what he says about the possibility of invasion. I would say he sees the possibility of invasion as probable because what's happened? France has been lost. Many old and famous states have been lost. And this is why. Because, quote, many old and famous states have fallen. Britain needs to be fully prepared to defend our island, whatever the cost may be. He wouldn't have to say that if he didn't think the war was coming to the United Kingdom. And so he thinks the war is coming, so he's trying to prep the people for it. Any good leader. If Great Britain should be conquered, from what two places does Churchill expect help? If United United Kingdom, Great Britain are synonyms. Were conquered, then Churchill expects to receive help from this, our empire beyond the seas. What is the British Empire beyond the seas? I know the answer, but I wonder what happens when you Google it. I know you guys love to Google, so let me just Google it. I'll look it up, and before the answer comes up, notice my eyes closed right there. British Empire beyond the seas. If it doesn't say Canada, I'll eat my hat. I think it's Canada. There you see Canada. But I guess it could be South Africa, Australia. So let's put that. I think he's going for Canada. So I'm going to say Canada. But I guess I will take Australia or South Africa too. Because it's not what it says from everybody, but that's what I'm going to say. But then he references Australia, South Africa. And wouldn't India be okay too? Because they were still a colony, but they were less firmly a colony. Or and this is reference to the New World. What country is from the New World? It's the most important country in the New World. Hint: they have the same color flag as the British. You'll figure it out if you're paying attention. Dun, dun, dun.